Look, I may be sitting here making YouTube videos in the middle of the night, but at least I'm not still chasing something called the American dream. You know, that fairy tale where you're supposed to get a house with a white picket fence, a shiny new car, and a fridge full of Coca-Cola. If only you work hard enough. Right. Tell that to the millions of Americans stuck with 30-year mortgages, student loans that outlive their marriages, and healthcare bills that could bankrupt a small country. Meanwhile, the rest of the world? We've moved on. We woke up. We realized the so-called dream is just capitalism with better PR. In fact, half the world looks at the US and says, "That's the dream? No thanks. I'll stay awake." So today, let's take a brutally honest, slightly savage tour through the biggest illusion America ever sold, and why the rest of the world quietly hit the snooze button and got on with real life. Let's be real. The American dream didn't fall out of the sky like an apple on Newton's head. It was manufactured, carefully packaged, and sold like the latest iPhone. Only this time, instead of promising you a better camera, it promised you a better life. And the funny thing is, most people bought it without even reading the fine print. Back in the 20th century, America was basically the Apple Store of nations. Gleaming skyscrapers, Hollywood films, jazz, Coca-Cola. It all looked irresistible compared to war-torn Europe or famine-hit Asia. And guess what? The US government and corporations worked together to brand this lifestyle as the dream. A dream where you could arrive with 2 suitcases, work hard, and supposedly end up with a Cadillac and a lawn big enough to play golf on. Spoiler alert, that was the 1950s, and it only really worked if you were white, male, and preferably didn't ask too many questions about Vietnam. But here's the kicker. The dream was never about freedom or happiness. It was about consumption. Buy the car, buy the house, buy the TV, buy the suburban lifestyle, and in the process, chain yourself to decades of debt. You thought you were climbing a ladder, but surprise! That ladder was leading straight into a mortgage company's office. Meanwhile, America exported this dream like Netflix exports cringe rom-coms. Immigrants came chasing it. Other countries looked at it. Even the Soviets were secretly jealous of blue jeans. But once you peel off the glossy advertising, the dream is nothing more than capitalism dressed up in patriotic drag. So if the American dream was always a commercial, the real question is, why did the rest of the world stop subscribing? Here's the thing about dreams. They're nice while you're asleep, but the moment you wake up, you realize you've been drooling on the pillow. That's exactly what happened to the rest of the world. Countries started looking at America's so-called dream and thinking, wait a second, this looks less like heaven and more like a pyramid scheme. Take Europe. After World War II, America strutted around like a motivational speaker on steroids. Work hard, buy a house, freedom is yours. Meanwhile, Europeans quietly built welfare systems, universal healthcare, and vacation policies so generous that Americans still think 4 weeks off must be a typo. In Paris, you can sip wine on a Tuesday afternoon. In America, you're lucky if your boss lets you sip water between double shifts. Then came Asia. Japan in the 70s and 80s looked at America's shiny consumer culture and thought, we can do that, but with better electronics. South Korea followed suit, pumping out both K-pop and GDP growth like there's no tomorrow. Even China, once the punchline of Cold War jokes, basically said, fine, we'll manufacture your dream and then sell it back to you at half price. And while the rest of the world was upgrading, Americans were still clinging to the fantasy of anyone can make it if they just work hard. Really? Tell that to the Uber driver with 2 master's degrees and a side hustle selling Pokemon cards to pay rent. Meanwhile, people abroad looked at America's healthcare bills, student loans, and mass shootings and realized, no thanks. We'll just stay awake. The irony? The American dream became more popular outside America than inside it. Immigrants arrived believing it, only to find the dream comes bundled with stress, inequality, and a coupon for therapy. So while the US kept snoozing, the rest of the world got up, stretched, and said, time to build something real. Here's the funniest part. Even as the American dream was collapsing like a Jenga tower at a frat party, Americans kept defending it with slogans so cheesy they should have been trademarked by Disney. Land of opportunity. Work hard and you'll succeed. Freedom isn't free. Yeah, well, neither is insulin. But you don't see politicians putting that on a bumper sticker. Patriotism became the duct tape holding this dream together. Politicians sold it like religion, corporations sold it like a Black Friday deal, and average Americans repeated it like a mantra. Ask someone drowning in student loans if the American dream is alive, and they'll still say, well, at least I have freedom. Freedom to do what exactly? Freedom to choose which debt collector harasses you first. Meanwhile, the evidence of collapse is everywhere. Wages flatlined decades ago, the middle class shrank faster than blockbuster video, and entire towns look like set pieces from The Walking Dead. But somehow, if you dare question the dream, people act like you've insulted their grandmother. It's almost adorable, like watching someone insist their 20-year-old Nokia flip phone is still cutting-edge technology. And don't even get me started on the self-made billionaire myth. Every time Elon Musk tweets, Americans shout, "See, the dream is alive." Really? The guy who started with emerald mines and daddy's money is your poster child for meritocracy. That's like saying Kim Kardashian proves you can get famous just by studying hard. The truth is, defending the dream has become its own comedy show. The punchline is that nobody laughing is inside the country. It's everyone outside, pointing and saying, guys, wake up. Your dream looks more like a sitcom rerun. For decades, America strutted around like it had invented success itself. We're the land of opportunity. We're the model everyone else wants to copy. Cute. Except while Americans were busy chanting slogans, other countries were busy, well, actually building opportunity. Take Germany. They don't call it a dream, they call it Tuesday. Free university, universal healthcare, world-class infrastructure. And somehow people there manage to buy houses without sacrificing their firstborn to a bank. Meanwhile, Americans treat home ownership like winning the lottery. Or look at Scandinavia. In Sweden, maternity leave is so long you can practically raise a toddler before going back to work. In America, women are lucky if they get 2 weeks and a congratulations email from HR. Whose dream looks better now? Asia too has been quietly outpacing the US. South Korea went from war-torn rubble in the 1950s to global tech powerhouse today. Singapore, once dismissed as a little fishing village, now has a GDP per capita that makes most Americans cry into their Starbucks lattes. And Japan? Sure, they've got demographic issues, but let's not forget, they perfected the bullet train while America still debates whether public transport makes you a communist. The irony is, America kept insisting it was the shining city on a hill, but the hill has potholes, broken streetlights, and an HOA fee nobody can afford. Other countries built systems where people actually get security, education, and healthcare without needing to buy into a dream. In other words, the American dream isn't dead because it failed. It's dead because it became redundant. Why chase a dream when in other places stability is just reality? Here's where it gets painful. Millennials and Gen Z aren't just skeptical of the American dream, they've straight up cancelled it. To them, the dream isn't a house and 2 cars in the suburbs. It's avocado toast without overdrafting their bank account. Boomers love to lecture. Back in my day, we bought a house at 25 and paid off college by working a summer job. Yeah, well, back in your day, a house cost $40,000, not 40 years of indentured servitude. Try telling a 25-year-old today that if they just work hard, they'll get the same. They'll laugh in your face, then Venmo their roommate for last night's pizza split 6 ways. Millennials figured out the math doesn't add up. Student loans, crushing, wages, flat, housing, forget it, healthcare. One broken arm equals financial ruin. Gen Z saw all that and said, no thanks, we'll just meme it into oblivion. Their version of the American dream isn't buying property. It's escaping debt, freelancing from Bali, and maybe owning a dog if inflation doesn't hit kibble prices. And yet, older generations still cling to the dream like it's a family heirloom. They'll say, you just don't want to work hard enough? No, Grandpa, we're working 3 jobs and still can't afford rent. The only thing we're inheriting is climate change and the world's worst interest rates. The punchline? The very people meant to carry on the dream are actively burying it. Millennials and Gen Z didn't just wake up. They unplugged the alarm clock, smashed it with a baseball bat, and uploaded the footage to TikTok with the caption, "Dream is dead, LOL." So now the question is, if younger generations aren't buying the dream, what happens to America when nobody's left asleep? At some point, the American dream stopped being a dream and started being a meme. The world no longer looks at America with envy. It looks with raised eyebrows and popcorn. What used to be land of opportunity now reads like land of GoFundMe medical bills. Think about it. Europeans vacation in Spain. Koreans ride bullet trains. Singaporeans buy condos that Americans can't even pronounce. And yet in the US, people still act like working 3 jobs just to afford rent is some badge of honor. That's not a dream. That's unpaid overtime dressed up as patriotism. Globally, the dream has become a cautionary tale. Politicians in other countries point to America and say, "See, that's what happens when you put profit above people." Meanwhile, Americans keep waving flags and chanting freedom as if you can pay rent with nationalism. Spoiler, your landlord doesn't take patriotism as a form of currency. Even comedians can't resist. Late night shows roast America's healthcare system weekly, foreign newspapers print headlines about US inequality, and TikTok is basically a graveyard of videos mocking how expensive it is just to survive in America. The dream isn't inspirational anymore. It's material for stand-up routines. And here's the kicker. While Americans argue about whether the dream is alive, the rest of the world already moved on. They built systems that actually deliver dignity without the marketing campaign. For everyone else, the dream isn't something to chase. It's something to laugh at. So maybe the American dream isn't dead. It's just been downgraded to what it always was. A really good commercial that aged badly. Like MySpace or reality TV. So here we are. The American dream, once the glossy poster child of success, now lies somewhere between nostalgia and comedy. For older generations, it's a sacred myth, like Elvis still being alive. For younger ones, it's more like a bad subscription service. Too expensive, no real benefits, and impossible to cancel. Meanwhile, the rest of the world already moved on. They built healthcare systems that won't bankrupt you, universities that don't cost a lifetime of debt, and trains that don't catch fire on the tracks. All without calling it a dream. For them, stability isn't aspirational, it's just normal. And that's the irony. The dream didn't die because it failed. It died because everywhere else woke up, stretched, and said, wait, why are we chasing dreams when we could just build reality? So here's my question to you. Is the American dream still worth defending? Or is it time we stop pretending and finally admit that the rest of the world woke up while America kept hitting snooze? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me, is the American dream alive, dead, or just another rerun nobody asked for?